a playlist original.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster with your hosts, Gaius and Jackson. This is another one of our anniversary episodes. So many movies turning big milestones this year, and we're trying to get to some good ones. There's a lot. Our calendar's
There
looking
are
full.
tons.
Our
Yes.
calendar's looking really full. But this one is celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Spring Breakers, which came out on March 22nd, 2013. The film is written and directed by Harmony Korine and stars James Franco, Vanessa Hudgens, Selena Gomez, Ashley Benson, and the director's wife, Rachel Korine. In the movie, Gomez, Hudgens, Benson, and Korine portray four college-age girls who go on spring break in St. Petersburg, Florida, and meet an eccentric local drug dealer played by James Franco, who helps them in a time of desperation. who helps them in a time
Eccentric.
of desperation, and their eventual descent into the world of drugs, crime, and violence. When it came out, it was released by A24. I mean, however you might feel about the movie overall, it did kind of show that A24 was a studio for like edgy kind of stuff that you're not going to be getting for like a lot of major studios.
Very
Um,
true. Love them for
and
that.
in relative to its budget, it was successful. It cost $5 million to make. It ended up making $31 million worldwide. I think a lot of this has to do with the subject matter and the casting of certain people, because said subject matter probably made it
Mm,
an interesting one for a lot of people to check out. Because we'll kind
certainly
of
a
talk about
point to get into.
we'll talk about it a little bit, because like with some of the girls in this movie, they were insanely popular. I mean, one of them in particular very popular, and she still is. Um,
hmm
but they all have like, some of them have like Disney backgrounds, and I think this was an opportunity for them to be like, all right, this is us growing up, we're doing this really kind of adult movie. I think
Oh
in terms of casting as well, for the studio and how they promoted it, I think they leaned into that. It worked in their favor, I think, recording wise, and and promoting the movie. And it did get decent reviews. It's 67% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. There are critics who love it. There are some who don't. I was surprised to find out on BBC's 100 Greatest Films of the 21st Century, they put it in there, uh, and it
Okay.
also
Wow.
it also was selected to compete for the Golden Lion at the 69th Venice International Film Festival. Um, of all of Curran's films, because he's an independent filmmaker, this is probably his most uh, accessible in terms of just the narrative, and
Oh, okay.
the narrative is still pretty weird. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a straightforward movie, but I think it's his most like kind of where you could kind of like maybe convince someone who isn't familiar with a lot of his other work. This would be
To
one
see
to kind of
this.
to
Yeah.
see this, because and then of course there's the appeal of the cast and all that as well. Um, but yeah, I saw this, had a fun experience seeing this on opening night when it came out, um, at the ArcLight movie
Nice.
theater, which is sadly closed now. The ArcLight didn't make it through the pandemic, but it was a really nice movie theater. Um,
I remember hearing
but
about that.
but what they would do, which was pretty cool, is that they would have certain showings that were like 21 and over, for especially like after midnight. So
Okay.
we saw this at one of those showings. So it was in one of the smaller auditoriums, but it was still decent size, and it was sold out, because I think the appeal of going to the 21 and over and having drinks while watching this probably was appealing to
That
the
is
tar
awesome.
the target demo. and
Yeah.
um
Don't get that where I'm from.
and it kind of probably helped with the whole like party atmosphere of the movie itself, seeing it with a pretty rowdy drunk crowd. um
Right?
but but rowdy and drunk, but in the sense of like, no, there was no troublemaking or anything like that. It was just like a fun
Right.
overall like experience. So that's how I first came across the movie.
It's quite
And
the
like,
experience.
yeah, and like I saw it with, I think, four or five other people. The people I saw it with, we all loved it, and I was and like that was only a little small pocket of my friends who I had seen it with. And I remember being like, all right, so everyone else is gonna love it. And then like I had other friends that saw it that weekend because they did for a movie that had like a pretty minimal budget. They did promote the hell out of it before it came out. Um, then some of my other friends were like, "Dude, that movie was trash. I understand like what you liked about it. Like, so it's always since that day, since that opening night, and since sharing that movie with other people in the years since it came out, I have always gotten a mix of, dude, that's fun. I loved it. I got what the director was selling, and then the other end of
Right.
the spectrum of it's trash. I don't know why you like it. um, so I will get into some specifics, but when we discussed this being an anniversary episode, you had said that the last time you watched it, when you saw it, you weren't into it.
Right. And that being said, I was probably like 15 or 16. So like I honestly, like, my opinions at that time for most movies, especially like first time views, I
Yeah,
honestly don't even really like consider that anymore, because like I've just changed so much since then, and I've developed so much as like a film lover that like I just clearly did not pick up on what the director was selling at the time I watched this.
right.
And yeah, like I was just like very much inexperienced, didn't really know what I was getting into. I was probably watching this movie for Selena Gomez and Vanessa Hudgens be
Yeah,
the way they look on this cover. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
typical
yeah.
like teenager thinking this
Yeah.
is just going to be like, I don't know, some sexy college movie or something like that, which
Right.
it kind of very much is still. But
Yeah.
I've definitely come to appreciate it more on second watch, to the point where I enjoyed the watch. That's not to say that I thought it was perfect or anything. There's like
No.
things in the movie that detract. I pointed out that I jotted down to bring up
Yeah.
for this discussion. But yes, it is aged well. I think it is a great depiction of like that excess and college and drinking lifestyle in the
Yeah.
States, and it just universally in the early 2010s. I think it did a great job at capturing what people that age were like at that time, and it serves as like a time capsule kind of 10 years later. Not that
Yeah.
much has changed, but it definitely is a product of its time, even though it's been a recent time, and I admired it for that. The director definitely captured that. um I didn't really know, and like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I kind of feel like this movie is regarded, and maybe it was intending to be this way as like a parody of that kind of like party culture.
So you know what? I
What do you
think that
think about that?
that's interesting because I think because his overall the idea behind the movie um was to kind of maybe not necessarily poke fun, but the girls' motivations for doing what they end up doing is because they're
Right.
bored, and it does kind of make fun of that kind of like kind of listless, like kind of like, oh, like I need, like they need something to excite them, and like when you're young and like I mean it says a lot about like media culture as well, the things that they're kind of like sucked into, the
Yes.
things that they find appealing. I think that's why they have the girls doing like the Britney Spears stuff on more than one occasion. It's like the things that they're like into. I think they are kind of like
Yes.
shining a light on that and being like, oh, it's ridiculous. And
Very
I
much
wouldn't,
so.
and like, so I don't think might not necessarily be like a straight parody of it, but I think he is kind of poking fun at like that kind of like
Okay.
self-destructive kind of like media obsessed culture, especially with young girls. Like because
Agreed.
like I
I
said,
got
like
that
that's
vibe.
the motivation. I mean, is like they're bored and they want to have like an epic spring break. I mean, it's the way like, and it's and like that's what drives them to do what they end up doing. Um, it's so stupid, but like I mean, a lot of young kids are motivated by very stupid things, and
And they
like
are stupid at that time in their life. You know what I mean?
yeah. So I thought that depiction, I'm glad you brought that up, is fairly accurate, even though I think they are kind of making fun of it. It is. I mean, we see that now with like all these years later, 10 years later with like TikTok and all that stuff too.
More
Like, like
so.
more
Yeah.
so now. I think he captured that well, but that could be a good avenue that he was kind of like maybe making fun of the culture a little bit. You can't be.
Exactly.
I guess you can kind of see that in like their depiction. I guess you can kind of see that in some of James Franco's stuff as well.
He
Uh,
who was awesome. I ate every scene he was in up.
yeah, yeah,
And
he's
I remember
amazing in the movie.
I thought he was whack when I first saw this. I was like, why the hell is James Franco in this movie as he is? Because I wouldn't have seen, oh, at that time in 2012, like I don't even know what sort, was this kind of like a different foray for him, like a different sort of role that he wouldn't have tackled before. I can't think of anything that he'd done
So
that was even remotely like this.
he was like I mean, I becoming known or maybe been known already. Like sometimes he would give like kind of these like transformative kind of performances where he would like play really unique characters, and I think that's kind of like he was always like that, but this was like completely like uh out of the box.
Definitely
And you know,
different for
there's a
him.
lot of back and forth on like who he based his character on. There is a white rapper named Riff Raff that
Yes,
he basically was like, I want my royalties for you basically playing me in your movie. But like you know,
right.
there's a lot of back and forth on whether he did or not. I think they try to keep some of that ambiguous. Just from what I've seen of Riff Raff and what I see of James Franco in this, I think he
Do
completely
you see
based
it?
his I think he completely based his
Yeah.
character on him.
IMDb
Uh,
seems to think that too. It's all
uh,
in the trivia section there. I saw that as well.
but yeah, I mean, but it's a silly but committed performance, dude. Like he's really like is so good in the
He
role.
disappears, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when he enters the movie, because it takes a turn. When he enters the movie,
Mm.
um, you know, whether or not that's where the problem is for some of my friends. Where like, once it
Oh
becomes
yeah.
like, once like Selena Gomez makes her exit, and then it becomes like the other girls are
Yes.
like more into like
I want to
they
talk
get
about
they get
that.
they get into like you know the nitty gritty of the movie. That's when it loses a lot of my friends. Who are like, this is just realistic. I just don't get it. But I think it's like a heightened reality that he's kind of like uh addressing certain
Yeah.
issues with that culture by like taking things to the extremes that he does. But
Right.
yeah, I you know because the thing that I like about the movie, and it's something that I saw when someone was writing about the film itself, and it said that he had devised the concept over 7 years prior to production with fleeting ideas about the plot and what should transpire. So his initial desire was to create a sensory film that was more about feeling than action and placed little importance on the narrative or plot. So I feel that like that is still kind of there because it does feel more like a movie you feel and experience rather than what
Yep.
narrative is driving the movie forward. But I also think that
Especially with a
is
lot of directing choices. Yeah.
yeah, but I also think that is also a call to like he's right he wants you to be in the headspace of these girls. And so like
Mm.
that's why I think he's successful at what he does with the movie because it's supposed to feel like this really excess like you know spring break experience that starts out so fun. That's why they show you the whole like I love that he shows you like the mundane, like them in college and their class and they're just bored and like you know, and then you know also I thought it was interesting, even though I think Selena Gomez acts this the narration and stuff very well, but I think it's so funny that you know when you're a teenager or when you're like even like early college age, like you just
Hmm.
want to feel something. Like she had all that dialogue where she's just like, you know, she basically wants to like she wants to feel alive and like, you know, wants to do something that means something. And it's and like, you know, you have to look at it from like someone who's her age, who's like, this is
Yes.
such like epic thing for her. And it's not just
Hmm.
necessarily about the party, it's about like, you know, like they were just so bored and they just want to like, you know, feel things and like I
Go
think
see
he
somewhere else.
go see somewhere
Yeah.
else. And like that conversation that she has, I think she's talking to her grandmother on the phone. And
Yeah.
as she says, like, I want to come back here again with you like next year. I feel like
Yes.
she means that. Like that, like I think she means that wholeheartedly. And like that's why I think like, you know, making her the innocent of the bunch, uh I think comes from a really real place. I think you're supposed to. It's not like she's not. This is like a real thing for her, of course, until you know
Right.
they end up getting arrested and then they end up meeting James Franco's character. But I,
Alien. Yeah.
yeah, that's what
I
I
love that's
did.
his name.
Yeah, but I do love that you know uh it pulls you in by being like putting them in their headspace, like them needing this kind of like adventure, this like break from their reality. Uh,
Hmm.
and they do. I mean, the way he shoots it, he does shoot like the like indie party like it should look fun and like the stuff that they're doing initially uh
Yeah.
looks pretty fun.
Yeah. 100%.
It looks a lot of fun and I'm glad I'm but yeah I think you have to see that to then show like the consequences of that and then like kind of where
Exactly.
things
It's a good
fall apart.
contrast.
Right. I think that's why
Um,
that supported me. Yep.
the perspective of the girls and the reason for why they want to go down to Florida for spring break in the first place is actually one that I was benefited from because I found it very relatable. I'm from northern small town Canada,
Yeah.
northern in perspective to Florida, not that northern Canada, but still up north a little bit, small town. In Canada, like the whole spring, people go away for what we call March break and stuff, but it's not nearly to the same degree as it would be in the States, like the culture around it, but it is still something that, we do.
Yeah.
And so like it was something I could totally feel where they were coming from, being felt trapped in this small town where nothing's going on, things are mundane, and they are desperate to go see something else and to be a part of something bigger and
Yeah.
this cultural movement that they want to be a part of. Like that was totally relatable for me, and I can see why this movie has that appeal to like the cult audience that it has garnered over the years, and it's why it'll be a movie that will be relatable for generations to come, and as years go by we'll probably only pick up more supporters.
Yeah.
That's something that movie has going for it big time. But about Selena Gomez, and I don't want to get too much into like speculative or what could have been, but I couldn't help but feeling one of my detractions for the movie, or where I think there was a missed opportunity, is when she does leave the movie, she's literally not in it again after she's very much makes it known to her friends she's not on board with hanging out with James Franco's character. She kind of sees where that's going to go. She's begging her friends to leave. And at that moment when you're like feeling her desperation, you feel very much on her side. You're like, yeah, nothing good is going to happen
To the
by
comment that
continuing to going down that road. You feel for her. You want them to get out of there because nothing good is going to happen. And I feel like the missed opportunity is if she had have stayed and her friends don't listen to her and convince her to stay, if the movie had kind of played out more of a tragedy where she is the one who
right.
something happens to, because she was the one that wanted to leave. But if they had have gotten her to stay and then something happens to her, and that is kind of like the catalyst for the movie, or like the big thing that happens at the end, I thought that would have been a better approach to what does happen. She's gone, like she's set up as the main character, at least that's how I
Yeah.
interpreted her character, and then she's gone halfway through. You don't see her again. I thought that was just kind of an interesting, not necessarily a good or bad, but just something that I feel like could have been handled a little bit differently. Just something that I had to get off my
No,
chest after watching. You
that
see
was
what I'm
really
saying
interesting.
on
That's
that?
yeah, I do see what you're saying. It's really interesting too because I remember, and I don't even know if this is true or not. I remember speculating at the time because it's like her. I mean, casting because she, of course, major pop star. She was on like the Wizards of Waverly Place. She's a Disney kid.
Yeah.
Vanessa Hudgens also in a different way, older. I think older than her, but like by
Yep.
a little
A
bit.
little bit.
Also Disney High School Musical. That's how she got her start. Um,
Oh yeah.
that's I always thought that like I don't know how much control Selena Gomez had over her career at that point. I always wondered if like her people were like, you can do this little racy kind of edgy movie and you'll do just enough where people are like, oh, this is like so different. But the other stuff that
Right.
these two girls are doing later in the movie, like you can't do that. Like, so
Right. That's a great
I've
point.
I've always been like her people probably like read it up to like page 40 and was like, ooh, and we're like, all right,
Then she's got to
you
get out.
you need to make your exit around page 40. And like I don't know if
That is
that's
a great point.
totally true, but I've always thought
Wouldn't
that might have been
surprise
the
me.
case. Um I
I think you're onto
I
something with that.
I love that scene though because I don't know. I mean, I've been to parties where there are people that end up like her, where they're like, they finally are like, this is not fun for me anymore. I want to go home, and like they
Yes.
basically, I've seen that at parties, and I
Yes.
think she plays that so well. Like you feel like how desperate she is to leave. I mean, I don't
Yes.
think Selena Gomez probably gets. I mean, she's not like the greatest actress in the world, but I think she is a lot better than maybe people get her credit for. Uh,
Certainly. I agree.
because she's big in so many different means, like music and everything. Like she's kind of all over the place. But I actually felt every bit of emotion in those scenes, and like and then when James Franco is talking to her, and like I
Oh,
could you could feel his skeeviness, and then you can feel her being like washed over in his skeeviness. Like you could tell that she's just so like uncomfortable
vulnerable.
and
Yeah, and
vulnerable
uncomfortable.
and
Yeah.
like that is played so well. But I think the movie does. I mean, for I don't like when she goes. I get it for the character why she does. Um,
Right.
I think it loses. Oh, I mean, I you have to really enjoy what they're doing so far. I think, yeah, it does go a bit over the top after she goes, and the girls get pulled full like fully into like aliens world and all that. Um,
Right.
honestly, I honestly could tell you like the movie up to that point is a better movie than the second half of the movie for me
Okay.
overall. Um, but I get it. I always thought the speculation though. I feel like her people were like, all right, you can't
I think you're totally right.
you cannot
Would have
put
been too much.
yeah, you can't put a pistol in James Franco's mouth and simulate like we're not gonna let you do
No,
that.
exactly. That would have been too much too fast for her breaking out of her Disney persona. But I
Yeah,
can't help but feel this movie did great for her career, enough to
yeah,
distance herself from this good girl, innocent Disney trap that she very well may have in another world stay victim to forever, and that she would
yeah,
never would have gotten away from that. This movie was great move for her. So props to her and her management and probably her parents to some degree for
yeah,
getting her
yeah,
in this, because it
yeah.
did good for her and for Vanessa Hudgens too, who I can't think of anything else that she was in between the High School Musicals in this.
Yeah, I'm
So
not. I you know,
good for
and
her career too.
I'll be completely honest because I didn't follow her a lot. Beautiful girl. I mean, I've always thought that.
Oh,
Uh, but I've really
yeah,
known her. I've known her. I knew her from High School Musical and those the two sequels. Um, I
right.
I mean, of course now. I mean, she was in the third Bad Boys movie. She's coming back for the next one.
Oh, I
So
did not
like
know that.
she's so I mean, but she was in the same kind of boat as Selena Gomez. I mean, I think it was well, and this is not to say Vanessa Hudgens actually had that photo leak, like nude photo leak, during like before this movie came out. So I
Okay,
so so
spicy.
so I think that the shocking one of the bunch to be in the movie was Selena Gomez. Like when they announced it, and then all of how they promoted. If you look up promotional images from this movie, like how they promoted the movie, and then just the poster, it's just they leaned into like the all the girls in bikinis. Like this is what we're showcasing, and I love the kind of like almost bait and switch of the marketing because it like you said that like it seemed like you were getting like a this fun kind of college age movie and it is that for some of it but I
For
think
sure.
like but I think they leaned into that so much in the marketing you'd be like all right and then it becomes this and but we need to get you in first and then
Yes.
and how we're getting you in is like hey like these Disney girls who've never done stuff like this before they're gonna be smoking some weed
Mhm.
dropping f-bombs like
Yeah.
they're
Robbing
gonna
convenience
robbing
stores,
convenience stores
holding
yeah
guns. Yeah.
holding guns yeah, I mean, I think that was like the appeal for I think, and credit to A24 because you said it was what in their third movie you said or
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah, very early
yeah,
for them, their third release.
it was a very smart marketing campaign. It's an interesting one to look back on and watch trailers for because like it was like really they really were like yeah this is an independent movie but we have some mainstream people in this independent movie and we have to kind of like take advantage of that and
Right.
and I to be fair, and I'm guilty of it. I fell for that marketing too because I was like, all right, I want to see what these girls are gonna do in this movie. This sounds fun. Let's get
Exactly.
it.
That's what
so
my 15-year-old ass was thinking too at that time. Like,
so like that was the appeal, and then and not even mentioning Ashley Benson. Ashley Benson was on Pretty Little Liars at the time. Uh,
right.
so like you know she, I mean, of course that show, even though it was like it's not a kid show, but it's like young adult. You know that
Yep.
kind of show. So like her too.
That
Like
was
she had
huge at this time.
yeah, she also had like her own probably desire to want to like branch out. And then Rachel Korine, who is like the least famous of the bunch, she is the director's wife. Uh
Hmm.
I mean I think that's why she I think out of all of them does the most as far as like there's that whole scene with her at the party and those guys are like pouring alcohol on her and I thought that scene was gonna like take a totally different turn
Right.
basically um and I actually listened to the audio commentary with the director who where he said that like she went all out in all of her scenes but I think it's because she you know there's a comfort level her husband's directing the movie so like she felt safe
Yes.
and then they said that she was also particularly like kind of like motherly with Selena Gomez like she looked after her like a lot and because when
Okay.
they
Oh,
because they said
nice.
because they said where they were filming in Florida and you know there was paparazzi everywhere so like especially for
Right.
specifically for Selena Gomez and
Right.
they were saying that there's that one scene where they're in like the pool at like the hotel or whatever and she has it like long monologue or whatever I guess like paparazzi were trying to take pictures while they're shooting it like because they were like actually using real locations and stuff like that so
Okay.
they couldn't prevent a lot of that sometimes and it was frustrating her but he was like you know what I need you ignore it but use it like what they whatever like you know whatever that is bothering you with them trying to invading your privacy, invading you while you're trying to work, like I know it sucks,
Right.
but we knew this was gonna kind of happen. Like, it's just the nature of the beast, but like use it. And he said after he told her that like she was able to just focus on like the scene and like get it done. Um,
Nice.
but
Wouldn't even have
yeah,
thought of that being an issue. That's crazy.
they were also particular about extras and all that because it's there a lot of people in some of the party scenes. She and the girls are all involved in those scenes. Um,
Yep.
and they said like if anyone got too handsy with her or something like that, that Rachel Korine was the one that was kind of like, no, that's my girl, leave her alone.
Oh,
And
okay.
she just
Right.
felt like she needed to like do that with her because like Selena
Nice. It's
Gomez,
good
they
that she
said
had
Selena,
somebody.
yeah, they said Selena Gomez was game for the stuff she had to do, but it was still like her first kind of foray into like this kind of filmmaking and stuff, like a role like this in a situation like
Definitely.
this. And it's a
She's
smaller
kind of a fish out of
independent,
water.
right? And it's a smaller independent movie that doesn't have a ton of like the stuff that would be in place to maybe like kind of protect her like in the best way, like because she's a huge star at that
Right.
point, and the people making the movie said they had to be those people to make sure that she felt safe and comfortable in that environment. So I thought that was cool to kind of find
Hmm.
out that they all kind of,
Certainly.
especially her, rallied behind her. But I suspected like Rachel doing the most because like yeah, her husband's directing the movie and he probably feels comfortable directing her in some of these scenes where it's like all right, just go all out.
Yeah.
I mean, they all in their own part, in their own way, I guess, go all out. But like, her character of Kadi is like she is the promiscuous one of the group. And
Hmm.
I love the description. It says, Rachel Korine as Kadi, a promiscuous girl who likes to party, but is a little more careful than her friends Candy and Brett. And then Selena Gomez is Faith, a girl who tries to devote her life to Christianity, but is also friends with party girls Britt, Candy, and Kadi. And then Vanessa Hudgens is Candy, an irresponsible and uncaring girl in college, and Britt's best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sums them up
So
very nicely. They all have a very diverse role to
yeah,
play, and they all have very much their own personality. Despite being amongst a group of four party living girls, they all
yeah.
very much feel like individuals. So props to them
No,
for getting that
and
across in their performances.
I did forget to mention Brett Ashley Benson, a rebellious and danger-seeking college girl. So they're all college
Yeah,
girls with all different desires and needs and wants. Just speaking on
yeah.
the one, two, three, four of them. Like, what are your thoughts on them as the characters overall, and then like how the actors kind of kind of really did throw themselves into playing them in a really realistic go all in or go home kind of way.
Certainly, I liked what Selena Gomez brought to the role. I liked, like, again, like this is kind of why I was like disappointed that she exits the movie, because I feel like they
Yeah,
could have done a lot more with her. But speaking back to your point, like I get why that is went the way it did.
yeah,
But I think the whole dynamic for her between her being the cautious, religious one who's like not as willing to go as deep as the other girls are was a great contrast to how reckless and game for everything that they were
yeah.
down in Florida. I thought that was a super good dynamic to the movie. Thought Ashley Benson and Vanessa Hudgens in particular were standouts to me. Just hadn't seen them do work like that before. Honestly, it was is it Corinne?
Yeah. The Rachel.
Rachel Korine.
Yeah.
She was the one that like thinking, because it's been a couple weeks since I saw it now. She's the one I remember the least of in the movie, and I think she does exit the movie after getting shot in the arm, right?
Yeah,
Shortly
yeah,
after
yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
remember some of her sequences like partying, but like she's of the four the one that stood out the least to me. Maybe it's because she's the only one that I didn't know of as an actress before
Like
going in.
uber
That's
famous,
definitely a
yeah.
factor.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they all have a great personality that they bring to the movie. I honestly like Vanessa Hudgens and Ashley Benson's characters are very much to me like very similar and like kind of
Similar.
do the same thing for me. They end
Yeah.
up they're the two that are there till the end. So I thought they all do a good job in the role. There's things that I don't necessarily buy from them. I think it's more of a writing perspective. Like sure that I first of all before, I'm going to preface this point by saying how much I admire how they filmed that robbery scene,
Oh,
shooting it
yeah.
outside as one of them's driving the car and you kind of
Yeah,
just get
yeah.
glimpses through the windows.
Yeah.
That was a great way to film a robbery scene. But then there's like a scene later where they're kind of acting all tough in front of Selena, showing her how they kind of
Oh,
pulled
how
off
they
the
did it.
robbery, because I didn't buy them as being like really intimidating people, and like they kind of just are repeating some of the same lines, like insinuating, like holding the gun. I didn't really buy into that, but then again, in contrast, that scene where they put the guns in James Franco's mouth and kind of turn the tables on him,
Him,
thought
yeah,
that was excellent
I bought
acting
that. I
on
totally
behalf
bought
of him
that.
as well. Totally, yes. But it was kind of hit or miss for me in some moments like that, their acting wise. But I don't think it was necessarily their fault. Just a little bit of the writing.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, no, overall, I thought the performances by them are great. Again, though, as good as they were, James Franco was the standout for me. He blew
yeah,
me away.
yeah. He's great.
What do you think about him? He was
I mean,
very interesting.
100% committed performance, man. It's fun role too. I mean,
Yeah.
you could tell that he's having fun. And
Yes.
what I like about it though, it's a goofy performance, right? But then like I go to that scene with like him and Selena Gomez before she leaves, and he's actually pretty kind of scary the way he's like talking to her.
Yeah.
Like you feel like that
Yes.
he would hurt, and when he says like you can leave basically, and like like but your friends are basically gonna stay, and like basically
Right.
saying like how like he hopes that she thinks about it like even when she's gone basically, and
Right.
that's the stuff that kind of makes your skin crawl. So he bounces between
Mm,
that kind of goofiness and then being like pretty frightening in the sense like in especially in that kind of environment. But
right.
yeah, I've always thought he was so good in this movie. A24 actually started Oscar campaign for him when this movie came out because they
That's
actually
right. I read that.
because
Yeah.
they really were like he was getting so much good reviews for it that they were like, all right, maybe there's a shot. I mean, I think it was like I think the Academy would have been like, oh no, but it was
Yeah.
it was worth a shot though. Yeah, he's so good. He's like probably one of the best things, or if not the best thing, about the
Yeah.
movie overall.
It exactly. And you know what? Thinking about it now, he doesn't even, to me at least, come across as an antagonist, where I think that's very much like what his role is supposed to be. The girls, for the most part, aside from Selena, who he doesn't do anything antagonistic to very much, are
Yeah,
all on board with what he's doing. He even doesn't even really give them an ultimatum. He bails them out of jail.
yeah,
Selena's like, "Hey, where are you bringing us? What's gonna go? What's gonna happen now?" Like, and this is
yeah,
totally a position where he could be like, "I own you now. You'd be in jail if it wasn't for me, and you're gonna do what I say." He very much
yeah.
doesn't come across that way. He's like, "We're gonna go for a drive and shoot the shit, and whatever happens, happens."
Happens.
And he's
Yeah,
very much not a bad he's a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy to the girl. So it's hard to even consider him an antagonist in that movie to me anyway.
yeah. I also think it's
What do you
real
feel? Is
very.
he
I don't. I think it's interesting too. He gives them the choice. It's kind of like it's all on them. Like he kind of put
yeah,
he dangles the fruit, but then like doesn't say like you have to do this. It's like he
right.
like almost like you can come with me, and if you like what you see, then let's do it. Like that's
Yes.
kind of how he
He
does it.
lures them.
He lures them, yeah. And and it's a very realistic way to write the having one friend that's like I don't know about this because there is usually one friend that's like this doesn't sound too kosher. I don't know if we should do this or not. And that's like Selena
Yeah,
Gomez.
that's right.
Selena Gomez is already like the moment she after they get bailed out is like, all right, you want something. What well, no, this
This
doesn't sound good
yeah.
at all.
She
Yeah,
sees right through him.
right
Yes.
away. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I wanted to go back like the robbery scene when they're talking about it. Like we were talking when they were like, I do like the way it's shot and cut. Like when they're doing the lines and like Vanessa Hudgens talking about holding the gun, they cut back to like the robbery and then go back to them at
Yes.
the convenience store. I thought that was
That was
really
some good
cool.
editing.
I
Yeah.
also, me and my friend used to always say it's Rachel Korine has the line where she's like talking, she's like, so I was just sitting in the car, like looking out for the motherfucking police. And I used to all me and my friend used to just always say that to each other because it's so like
Exactly.
I think it's supposed to be kind of cringe because they think they're thugs, and I think it's supposed to
That's
kind of
what
come
I'm
off that way.
maybe
And
they just did a really good job at that and it made me cringe out because I wasn't
yeah,
buying it, but that could have been the idea.
but also, I mean, I think that might be the idea, but they're also committed to. I mean, I kind of maybe not actually buy them as tough girls, but like it is kind of that scene is played well. And honestly, Selena Gomez again is probably one of the better ones in that scene because she just has to react, and you could
Right.
tell even like she's like these girls are my friends, but this sounds
I don't
like
recognize
it
these
went
girls
this
right now.
oh yeah this is kind
Yeah.
of went too far. Uh, yeah, I think it's shot well. I mean, yeah, we probably could ask different people like what their opinion of that is. Like, are we is it cringeworthy because they're making fun of kids acting like this, or do they just not
Right.
sell it like 100%? But yeah, that's
I
an
don't know
interesting.
where I stand, but I something was off about it for me, but a minor gripe. Nothing crazy.
Oh, that's
Um,
hilarious. I just
yeah, it was
recalling that.
shot well, very vibrant, neon heavy
Yeah,
movie, which I dug for it. It very much added to the personality of that movie, kind of contributed to it being a product of its time or its setting. Like I thought it was like the cinematography was great. There's a couple great sunset shots as well that look
yeah,
gorgeous on film.
yep.
Lots to
It's
love
pretty.
about the technical side of that movie.
It looks like Spring Break. Like it looks
It
how I
does,
like it.
yeah.
It looks like it looks how I mean. That's why I think it's cool that he pointed out that at first he wanted to make a sensory film because you do feel it. Like you feel like the he is creating a very like vibrant atmosphere. Um, and that could be
Yes.
why. I mean, the movie is very short on plot, right? I think he was very honest about like this was going to be something like you would feel and experience more than like a lot of narrative moving things forward. And the fact that he didn't even have a story at first was just gonna like writing down basically emotion and like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take them here, here, and here, and here, rather than like having a story that takes them here, 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 and there. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, but you could tell that he poured a lot of, and hey, for a $5 million movie too, it looks great. It looks like a really, they look like there's more money that was put into it than like $5
I can't
million.
believe that was the budget on that. That is great. He knows how to, stretch those dollars.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's probably like one of the biggest selling points of the film is that it is a very good looking movie. Cinematography is amazing. I think cinematographer is Benoit Dublé or Duby. I don't want to fuck it up, but yeah,
Okay.
did did a good job. And the music too. If you're gonna make a movie about spring break, gotta throw in some Skrillex.
Yeah. That
uh,
I feel like his music definitely is what grounded that movie in the early 2010s for me because I remembered listening to Skrillex at that time. He was huge back then.
yeah,
And it was honestly kind of nostalgic to hear some of his tracks on that in that movie. It was interesting to say the least.
yeah. Him and
Brought
Cliff
me right
Martinez
back.
did the music, and like, there's a song
Oh,
like,
Cliff Martinez.
yeah,
Cool.
While for the Night" by Skrillex. There's like it's a song with ASAP Rocky and Skrillex, and "While for the Night," like when that song first came out, that was like we would play that before we were going out. Like we knew that we were gonna have a good time that night.
Uh,
So like
right. That's awesome.
when I heard that song in the movie, I was like, oh, this is so perfect. This is like the perfect song like for like a
Yeah.
party scene in a movie like this. Uh, yeah, but that's another example of just like creating the world that he wanted to convey in that movie. I mean, that is kind of what like you said, Skrillex was like pretty huge around that time, and like
Big time.
uh, it would make a whole lot of sense to use his music to kind of help tell that story from a technical standpoint as well.
Yes. Um, I just want to give a shout out. I recognize Cliff Martinez. He's the composer for the movie The Foreigner and no doubt many others, but it's a movie that I love too. So I have a couple tracks from that movie on my phone or on Spotify, and I recognize his name. I had no idea he did did some of the score for that. I only recognize Skrillex, so that's pretty cool.
Nice. Well, I had to check. I also like that you have like certain tracks like from different movies like that you
Mm,
listen to because I actually have some on like my phone as well. Like I have like all right,
yeah,
yep. Sometimes I want to listen to a nice
I
piece
love
of
a
like
good
music.
score.
Yeah, yeah. It
Yep.
works.
I
So
have them all on a playlist on my Spotify of all my movie scores that I have and video game
nice.
scores too. There's some of those, but yeah, no, he's a great composer.
Oh, interesting thing about
Um,
the casting too is that to kind of which is why I think all the casting was very intentional. Or originally Emma Roberts was
mhm,
going to be the Ashley Benson role.
right.
She backed out due to her being uncomfortable with the film's explicit sexuality. Even though I don't know what movie she thought she
Fair.
was going to sign up for.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but he said that he purposely collected a group of well-known young actors with a similar reputation to Emma Roberts in Hollywood. So that's how he kind of rounded up Selena Gomez and Vanessa Hudgens. I mean, all of it is very
Okay.
intentional. I mean, I think uh, he definitely knew their reputation as far as like being like kids of these like really fun young shows that are geared towards a young audience. Like
Right.
that is all. I mean, I think it's interesting that he was selling not just a movie but an entire package, and he knew exactly what he needed to do to like truly get the movie he wanted out there. So I think that's a really interesting way that he went about doing it, uh, and making sure that
Totally.
he secured those roles. I would have loved to know like what the meetings were like to like cast him. Like if it was hard, I guess when like you're a younger actress in Hollywood, like a movie like this does probably sound appealing because
Totally.
one, it's racy and different for you, but it has some like independent movie like indie credibility. So it's not like it's like you're not just making like a random trash kind of racy kind of movie. It might have something that it might have something to say. So you get to kind of do that, but
Yes.
also being like, everyone wants to when you're in their boat, like Ashley Benson coming from TV, Selena Gomez in music, but mostly young TV, Vanessa Hudgens,
Right.
High School Musical, so young TV, then young movie for the third one they released in theaters. Like that has to be part of the sell. There's like, this could be a really good opportunity to kind of showcase that we're more than what they think we are. Which I think is a
Emphasis on could. This very much feels like it was probably a creative gamble for these ladies at the time they did this, even maybe for James too, not knowing like how good this movie might have done. And it ended up making lots of money relative to the budget. So
yeah.
like honestly, great that it paid off for all of them. Interested, like I didn't really take the time to dive into like many of the actors' careers post Spring Breakers, but did this do anything for anybody besides Selena and James that you know of? Like Ashley Benson, I don't hear a lot about. Vanessa Hudgens has done some stuff,
Yeah,
but anything come to mind for you?
Ashley Benson has mostly stuck to TV. So not like a huge like uh movie career after Spring Breakers. She's done movies, but like nothing that was like you would consider like huge by any means.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, she was on Pretty Little Liars for 7 seasons. And then she has done like a lot of just guest spots in TV work since then. I mean, I mean,
Okay.
160 episodes of a TV show that she was on is pretty good run. Um,
Definitely.
but it is interesting. Like she, and then Vanessa Hudgens has bounced back and forth between like film and TV. I believe I'm like pulling her up right now just to kind of
Okay.
look.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like like she's yeah, she was in Tick Tick Boom. I forgot about that. I love that movie with Andrew
Oh,
Garfield.
cool.
Yeah, she was good in that. So yeah, she's done movies, but like I don't think it. I it's interesting. I that you said that because I would think a movie like this would kind of give them an
Catapult them a
opportunity to
little
like
bit.
to do like similar things or like like edgier
Right.
things and like but I don't think it benefited them in that way. I mean, I think the fact that they did it was the win and like it could show that they could do more uh if given the opportunity. Uh but yeah, it is interesting that like it didn't like for some of them shift into
Didn't
more like to doing more movies like this, like and more
right.
projects like this.
Especially
Yeah.
considering like its success and like their reception to their performances. It's interesting to see, but I mean, definitely didn't do any damage to Selena's career. James kind of this is one of his roles where I feel like he's kind of taken seriously as like a credible actor. This
Yeah.
and like the Disaster Artist come to mind too. Um, and speaking of critical actors, looking through the cast here, and I'm just coming across somebody that reminded me of a point that I had screenshotted to
That,
mention. The role of the youth pastor, did you know was originally supposed to go to Val Kilmer and he had to drop out? And
no, I did
I
not
thought that
know
would have been
that.
awesome to see. Yeah, I
Oh
can't remember the
wow.
reason. But yeah, so it's he's played by a guy named Jeff Jarrett, who I don't recognize, but I did read that Val Kilmer was originally supposed to be in that role, which would have been so awesome, even though he's not in it very much. Would
Well,
have been
yeah,
great to
that's
see
crazy.
another face like it.
Yeah, that would have
Yeah,
been
I
awesome
thought that would have been
actually.
really cool.
Uh,
Yeah.
and then of course we got Gucci Mane as as
Yeah,
Archie
I
Big
did not know
Arch.
that at the time. I was like, what? I couldn't believe that was
And
him. That
not
was so
not that
cool.
bad. Not that bad in the movie. It's pretty decent.
No, he
Like
does fine.
holds his
Yeah.
own. Um,
Some of his
I,
music is featured in the movie as
yeah,
well.
yeah, definitely. Um, I when I was listening to some of the commentary, they were talking about like the just the overall creative process. I guess like the girls had rehearsals like maybe a couple of weeks before the movie they started shooting the movie, so they could actually start getting along and be like friends and like so it could be a genuine like on screen uh
Right.
friendship. Um, I was some lines are improv. There's definitely not like I mean he had basic like outlines and stuff that they would write. He said that some of Selena Gomez's narration that she does was improv. Like he was just basically gave her an idea of like what she should be talking about, and then
Okay.
she would just kind of go off on like a tangent and like because he wanted to be more authentic rather than her just like memorizing lines from a script and like reciting it. He wanted it to feel like it was she was Faith and she was saying like all these things. So I thought that
Never
was
a
an
bad
interesting choice.
choice.
I thought that was an interesting
Yeah.
choice to have her do that. Um, and then he also mentioned that Ashley Benson and Vanessa Hudgens, because like the second half of the movie is a much different beast entirely,
Yes.
and said that they were just 100% game to do anything that he asked of them. Um, what are your thoughts on the second half of the movie after Ashley Selena Gomez leaves, and
Okay.
now they're fully immersed in this kind of life of crime? Yeah.
And I'm glad you asked because I was going to specifically ask you on your thoughts on like the last 10, 15 minutes, but we'll get
Yeah,
there. So you mentioned that you think it's a better film first half.
yeah,
While I don't necessarily disagree, I do feel that there had to be a shift in this movie where it's not that long. It's only an hour and a half, but it
yeah.
wasn't. This movie was never going to be about four girls that just go down to Florida for spring break and have a great time and come back home. You know what I mean? That who wants to see that?
Right.
So I think like the change in tone after they meet James Franco's character and he bails him out of jail. I thought that was like a huge benefit to the movie, like narrative wise. I'm glad that there was some conflict introduced beyond them like going to jail. Um, I'm fine with Selena's departure. I think I like the second half more until it kind of loses me at the end, and that's kind of like where I wanted to get to. I
Yeah,
think like showing the girls get a little bit more depraved and a little bit more like kind of loose in their actions and more influenced by the lifestyle that they've been, shown. It was great, and they all did a great job at portraying that. And
yeah,
the director did a good job. He also wrote, great job writing there. Um, it's the point where they get to, and you have to fill in some blanks for me because it's been a couple of weeks and I'm losing some details here. But
yeah.
they end up basically taking over Gucci Mane's compound, and there's
Wow,
a
yeah,
huge big
yeah.
fucking firefight. These
Like, yeah,
two girls with no weapons training are shooting it's a big shoot 'em up. I was kind of
taking
like
them
watching like
all out,
holy shit. But
taking
and
them
not a
all out.
scratch on them. I that kind of took me out of it a little bit. So at that point I was like, maybe there could have been a message there that I just wasn't picking up on. I just haven't really had the time to analyze that yet. But I want to know your thoughts on what you think about that whole climactic shootout and stuff.
So it's excessive, right?
God,
But I think
it's
that might be
silly, but
I think that might be the point, is that it's like this heightened kind of reality. Like it's
right.
almost I think like what the director is doing, it's almost like it's supposed to be like a fever dream. It's not supposed to be real. It's like it's a kind of like this kind of heightened sense of like what this world could look like for them. And like I agree with you. It is pretty ridiculous to watch two girls who probably never fired a gun before. Not
Right.
like take everyone out like Terminator 2 style, like, without like getting like a scratch on them.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
I do like how it's shot. It's fun. I mean, like it's like I love
Definitely.
the creative choices, like directing wise. Like it's really interesting. You're gonna have a sequence like that, make it interesting, and they certainly do.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, I think that's where a lot of my friends lose the movie too. They lose it,
Is that
right?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like I don't. They're like I'm sure there's a point, but I just don't like. I don't like it. Whatever he's trying to
It didn't
sell. It's like,
lose me 100%. Like I was on board with what I was seeing. At that point was just kind of like an interesting end to me, and like a point where I was lost, but it didn't like ruin the movie for me per se. But it definitely
yeah,
like made me think a little bit.
yeah.
Certainly. Remind me again, how exactly does like I remember what happens to James Franco's character, but just not who does it to him or like what the circumstances are when
He gets shot.
sacked.
He gets shot by one of the big Archer's guards, and I think that's what I think that's
Oh,
what
okay.
I think that's what makes it interesting, because I think you think that he's gonna be around, and they're gonna need to
Yeah.
like they're he. But I guess I do like the bait and switch of like they're the ones that like, even it may not be realistic, but they're the ones, not him, not anyone else, but
Right.
these two girls are the ones. And in this weird way, it almost comes off as this like kind of like female empowerment kind of moment. It's like really
A
interesting how
little
like
bit, yeah.
uh I that's why I think it's so interesting that it's done like that, and you're like, all right, well, he's not gonna be the one to do any of this stuff, and like, and then they end up
Yeah.
doing it, and they kill the entire game and because just like
Yeah,
it's interesting to say the least. Um,
for sure.
I do love that flash forward or the two girls like call when they call home and they say they're promising that they're gonna work harder and like be better people. Like I just think it's just
Yes.
really interesting. Like the whole that's how teenagers are too. Like
Yeah.
oh yeah, and I just thought that was so funny. I mean, I think it is written to be kind of like a funny kind of like because you're like well you're looking at what they're doing currently and like they have these like really kind of emotional kind of call like when I get back home like I'm gonna work harder and be a better person.
I
I thought
honestly
that,
think that is a great, from a writing perspective, thought it was a great way to capture like just the disingenuous nature of like these young women realizing that they've very much messed up and things have not gone according to plan. They've gotten a little taste of how dangerous this lifestyle that their choices have led them to is, and they
yeah
think for a brief instant that they're not going to continue going down this path, and they're sorry and they're remorseful and they want to change, but it's
yeah
it's such a fleeting moment, and after that phone call to their parents, whatever, they revert right back
so
to
the
what they
being
were
like
doing before,
doing
even
for
more so. And I'm like, you
yeah
know what, that is very much the case for a lot of people that are in exposed to that sort of, maybe not exactly the same thing they're going through, but I'm sure everyone can relate to a little bit of having, coming across some adversity, thinking you're going to change, and then continuing that behavior. I thought that was actually like a
yeah
pretty great source of the writing in that movie.
yeah I think so too. I also
Yeah.
love the montage where they're showing the rock. It's when he's playing the piano. They eventually play that Britney Spears song every time,
I like
and
that sequence a lot.
so that sequence is so good because certainly that song you would never think to use for a montage like that, but that's why
No.
that scene is so good because it's just like you're not expecting like you're taking this really emotional song that Britney Spears wrote about and it's one of the only few songs that Britney Spears has co-written. So like it like about a breakup and then you're using it as a way to like show these girls getting fully more immersed in like a life of crime and I just love that the it's like this like sweetness attached to it with this like, really dark stuff
Yeah.
that's going on. Like, wow,
That's
that's
right.
great.
Great contrast again. There's a lot of moments like that.
And yeah,
I
I
also really
love that.
appreciate, yeah, it was a great sequence. I really appreciate like the small little ways in which they actually kind of develop James Franco's character
Yeah.
as a like a musician, like the
Oh yeah,
fact that he has a piano and he's actually playing it. I
yeah,
thought
yeah,
that was
yeah,
great, instead of him just being that one scene where he's rapping at the spring
yeah,
break party. I thought
yeah,
like they actually do show a few different moments of him in his music career. I'm like, that okay, that's a, good character development for him.
yeah. I also, me and my friends used to, friends that liked it, used to also quote. He has like when he's like talking about all this stuff, he's like, look at my shit, like doing this whole thing with the guns and all that stuff.
Dude,
it's
that
so,
shit killed me, dude.
it's so good. Like it's so well done.
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't know the lingo, but harkening back to what you said about A24's Oscar campaign for him, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure like the line that they went with, like when they sent in like his performance to be considered, was like, consider this shit.
Yeah.
Was what they said. Like when they sent it to the Academy in the vein of his character, I like, that was hilarious. That was a good move. Or please consider this shit or
It
something like that.
makes me
So
love
awesome.
A24 so much more. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
I
hilarious. I'm just imagining a bunch of old Academy members being like, "What? No,
What the hell? What is
what?
this shit? Yeah.
What is this?" Oh god, that's hilarious. And then as far as when the movie was released, I mean, we brought it up in the beginning. As far as I mean, they really leaned into the marketing. It was promoted very pretty well for a movie that cost $5 million to make. And like I said, I do believe it made as much money as it did worldwide because there was this appeal to like see these girls in particular do something like this. I think that was like the biggest selling point for it. Now, when it became like, I was surprised too because I didn't know that's what they were going for. When they were sending it to like the Venice Film Festival and like it was playing in circuits like that, and it was getting that kind of attention, I was like, oh, this is going to be more than like throwaway yeah, you thought like college party movie. Like this is gonna be something
Right.
much better. Um, uh, 67% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's fine because like I can't imagine every critic is gonna like pick up what this movie was putting down. um,
Right. I think that's a pretty fair assessment.
but on the consensus for Rotten Tomatoes, it says Spring Breakers blends stinging social commentary with bikini cheesecake and James Franco performance. James Franco got a lot of good reviews for the film. Like I more actually more so than all of them. And why not? It's a flashy, really fun performance, and you definitely don't
Yep.
forget about it. Um, let's see. Some of the reviews, IndieWire gave the film a B and stated that the film would be a future cult favorite for midnight moviegoers. I think that has happened with the movie since it
They got
uh,
that right.
came out. Variety did not like it. They said this attractively fizzy pick may be a shock to the system for the fans of teen queens Selena Gomez and Vanessa Hudgens, but remains pretty toothless titillation by its writer Hilmer's standards for his previous movies. Uh,
Hmm.
Hollywood Reporter said James Franco gives one of his most bizarre performances in his unpredictable career, saying
Yeah.
he's a cross between Bo Derek and Ten and Richard Kill and Moonraker. Uh, and then Slant Magazine gave it 3 out of 4 stars. And Richard Roper gave it the film 3.5 stars out of 4, praising the character of Alien and the film's sense of humor. And then this is an interesting review. This one guy gave it 4 out of 5 stars from the Skinny and said, "If Michael Mann was to take a lot of hallucinogenics and shoot a Girls Gone Wild video, it might look something like this."
Yo, that is actually awesome. That is so true.
That's so hilarious. And it says Spring Breakers has since appeared on various retrospective best of lists, including one honoring the best films of the 21st century. In 2016, British film magazine Little White Lies placed the film at number 40 on their list of the 50 best films of the decade so far. In August of the same year, BBC Magazine conducted a poll on the 21st century's 100 greatest films so far, with Spring Breakers ranking at number 74. Uh, let's see, and then a lot of it was like overseas praise, and then it did end up on some top 10 lists
Nice.
for the year. Los Angeles Times had it in their top 10 of the year. IndieWire did, the AV
Wow.
Club, Film.com, HitFix, the Boston Globe, the Daily Beast, Time Out New York, and the New York Times.
Yeah, man,
Actually,
2015 was a strong year of the movies too, so that's
yeah.
impressive that it made so many lists.
Now this is interesting because the film actually also they said generated debate its portrayal of women. I feel like that could be a good point to bring up because it says Spring Breakers has generated debate and controversy among critics, with some regarding the film as sexist due to the objectification of women, while others view the film as a feminist or female empowerment film, which is something we mentioned earlier. In regard to the former
Yes.
perspective, The Guardian suggests that the film reinforces rape culture and turns young women into sex objects, while other reviewers state that it pushes booze and bikini hedonism to the extreme, as the camera glides up, down, and around these women's bodies like a giant tongue. According to Rolling Stone, the film presents a kind of girl power camaraderie that could almost be called feminist, a result of the director's intent to do his most radical work, but put it out in the most commercial way to infiltrate the mainstream. And then
That is certainly accurate.
yeah, and then Richard Roper said Corinne's camera is nearly an intrusive weapon as he lingers over the soft, limber bodies of Vanessa Hudgens, Selena Gomez, Ashley Benson, and his wife Rachel Korine. I think that's sort of the point. When a pre-med student on spring break loses her top, drinks to the point of passing out, and grabs a willing lug nut by the ears for 6 hours of anonymous fun, is she setting the woman's movement back 4 years or taking charge of her life like any man would do at that age? I think that is a very interesting take on
Wow.
hearing both sides of that argument, like people looking at the movie one way as kind
Yep.
of like, and then of course looking at it because it's interesting because we mentioned the female empowerment thing earlier, but like yeah, I think that was. I mean, how do you see it?
Uh, you know what? Like after reading or after sitting here and thinking of everything that you just said, I made up my mind before the last thing you said that I think it honestly like blends both. I think both sides of the argument are present in that movie. I
Yeah,
don't know that like I had my mind made up one way or another. Certainly in the beginning, in those that montage of like the topless women and men, while the slow-mo topless sequences near the beginning, they are sprawled out throughout the movie, but particularly when the Skrillex music is playing, like that is very much looked at the time when I'm first watching it, I'm like, this is directed by the horniest 16-year-old guy ever,
yeah,
until I kind of was like, it's kind of parodying this stuff though, we're like poking fun at it, so it kind of, I forgave it for a bit. But I can see scenes like that in the partying scenes, sort of objectifying women, glorifying the party scene, and but I
yeah.
don't think it necessarily like glorifies or accentuates like rape culture, because this is very much the experience of millions of women, young women around the globe every year at this time of year, and other parts of the year, and this is just very much their reality. This is how a lot of them spend their time and spend their spring break. I don't think it was looking at it. I think it was looking at it objectively and not trying to make you feel one way or another. And then there are definitely moments later in the film that very much felt more towards like a female empowerment, like
Yeah.
when they are collaborating in robbing the convenience store, when they are kind of seeking retribution over Alien's death, the way that
Yep.
they just work together, specifically after Selena Gomez's departure, that sort of thing. How they don't stick with her is not very much female empowerment, but everywhere
Yeah.
after that, very much felt. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's very much a blend of those two things,
Yeah.
not one
So
way or another, black and white.
it's really interesting, like, to go back when Selena Gomez is telling she's ready to go. She doesn't want to be there anymore, right? And it does remind
Yeah.
me of like how fickle and like girl, or not just girls, like teenagers in general, because they are like
Yes. Young
looking like
people.
they're like, yeah, they're there, we get it, but we're not leaving. Like it's very much
Yeah,
like
exactly. We feel for you, but we're
we feel
staying
for,
put.
like, girl, you go
We'll
on and
call
get
the
on that
bus.
bus and go home. Like, but they're not gonna go.
Right.
So it's like I actually believe they're friends. I mean, I don't think it's like a fake friendship. I just think that's kind of like
Right.
what happens sometimes. Like I always thought that was
Yeah.
really funny and pretty realistic though, that they are like kind of like
Yes.
they're there kind of thing. But like, all right, you go on and go. We're not going back home with you though because we're still having fun.
Right.
I thought that was
Exactly.
pretty interesting. And then as far as the riff raff controversy, because we brought it up earlier. Uh,
Hmm.
so I guess February 15, 2012, the director contacted rapper Riff Raff about appearing in an upcoming film, but and it would later turn out to be Spring Breakers. And then they said once the trailer was released, there was speculation that that character Alien was based on Riff Raff. According to Franco, Alien is based on the underground rap artist Dangerous, who has a cameo in the film. But Riff Raff fully believes that he based the character on uh, him, because but even James Franco says, of course, Harmony and I looked at some of Riff Raff's videos as inspiration, but he was one of a number of people we looked at. I would say the biggest influence on the role was this local Florida rapper named Dangerous. He's fairly unknown, but he was down here in the place living the life, and he became the biggest model for me, and he's in the movie. And then it says, after much back and forth between both camps about the issue, Riff Raff announced in July 2013 that he was suing the creators of Spring Breakers for $10 million for sampling his life without his
Double the
permission or
budget of the movie.
without his permission or a proper producer credit. However, a September 2013 search by LA Weekly for court documents resulted in no findings. So he probably was like a lot of talk and not action
Yeah.
on that. Um,
All
I
bark,
love
no
how
bite.
I like it says sampling his life. I'm sure. I mean, yeah, maybe the rap culture part, but like everything else, you want to say that like that's the lifestyle you're living, like everything else that goes on in the movie.
Right.
I thought that was
You had to shake a little bit.
pretty interesting thing to look at. But yeah, um,
No, absolutely.
but yeah. Oh, and
Um,
then also there was an abandoned sequel that no one involved with the movie
this is
was.
news.
It says it was a sequel under the name Spring Breakers: The Second Coming was announced on May 6, 2014. It was written by Irvine Welsh and directed by Jonas Ackerlund. Welsh's script focused on a set of spring breakers coming into conflict with Christian extremists, and Wild Bunch originally slated the film to debut at the upcoming Cannes Film Festival. Upon the announcement, Franco released a statement saying that the sequel was not being done with Harmony Korine or my consent, and that the producers were capitalizing on that innovative film to make money on a weak sequel and attempting to make money off someone else's creativity. By 2017, the project had been shelved in favor of a digital series for short video platform Black Pills. The series never materialized, and Black Pills itself shut down after less than 2 years online.
Probably for the best that we
Yeah,
never saw anything more.
yeah,
This is very much a standalone. Nothing else needed to be explored with
yeah,
this movie. I think it does a great job as a solo film. So I think that is all for the best. I don't know. It doesn't sound like the sequel would have had anything to do with this one. So that's all for the best. Funny
yeah.
how James Franco worded that though, without the director or his consent.
Or consent.
Was he like an executive producer or something? What
I
stake did
don't
he have
know.
in that?
I don't know. Actually,
That's interesting to me.
yeah, that's interesting.
Um,
Yeah, I'm glad it didn't happen though.
no, funny though how he considers it like so much like as like a part of his like that he's so ingrained in the property that
Yeah,
he
yeah.
would feel that he would need his consent for a sequel.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to pitch to you. I mean, you've seen this movie many times more than I have. You were there opening night. You saw it when it came out. I was a little bit behind the scenes. I've only seen it a couple times. I wanted to ask you how this movie holds up to you, given all your viewings with it, and you must have seen it fairly recently. I'm assuming in
Yeah, yeah.
anticipation for this. Is that right? So
Yeah,
how does it hold
definitely.
up for you? Has anything changed? Have you appreciated it more, less, the same? Let us know.
I think I appreciate it more today, and I mean, I first of all, I do understand why some people don't like it. Um,
For sure.
I totally get it, but I think and it's interesting looking at the film today because I think even more so today, this kind of culture that he was like, I agree with you. I think he might have been poking fun at it a bit, and it is so much more relevant today than it even was in 2013 with how like, especially in
Yeah.
the rise of like TikTok and stuff like that, and like what people are kind of obsessed with. There's the media celebrity, you know, excess, this kind of culture that a lot of young kids
Yes.
are obsessed with is more alive today than it was even then. And I think that's why the movie continues to work because that commentary is still going on right now. And uh, and
Very much so.
I think he did a really good job kind of shining a light on that uh, in a way that made in a way that was fun too. Like I mean, it is a fun movie, and you know it's entertaining. But I think he got his point across, like you know what he was trying to say about that culture, especially with young girls. That's why I lean in on the side of it being more of a female empowerment movie rather than objectifying them, because
Right.
I feel like they're in control, like pretty much the whole time. Uh, it's like they I don't think there's a ton of moments where they can feel like, other than Selena Gomez, then when she leaves, I don't think there's like a lot of time where they can feel like
Yes.
victims. I feel like they're kind of always in control of the situation, and uh, they are not weak. I mean, they're not. I'm not saying that
No,
they're smart. I'm
not
not
for
saying that they're smart and that you should do anything like this stuff. But like, as far as characters in the film, they are very much in, I think, control of the narrative. Like,
they're
uh,
not damsels in distress by any means.
right. And like, you know, it's like that reference to that whole James Franco thing when he bails them out, like doesn't make them do anything. Like you said, the choice is like always theirs. And like
Yes.
and then like, eventually, you know, they kind of turn the tables a bit, and like I think they're always kind of like in control of that situation. So that's why I think it's more of a movie that kind of praises that, even if it is kind of mixed in this kind of a really crazy recipe of like partying and spring break and like all this other stuff.
Yes.
There is a message in there, and I think that's kind of it would have been easy just to make this like a really just fun like debaucherous kind of film, but I think he had a lot more to say about it. But
Right.
I'll be honest, man. I like I said in the beginning, my intentions when I saw it opening night were much different than like what I came out of it from. Like in watching it in subsequent viewings, like me and my
Yes.
friends that really want to see it, we were caught up in that marketing. Man, I was like this looks fun. Like the girl from like Riz's of Waverly Place,
Can't
what is she doing? What is she doing in
can't
this?
blame you at all for that.
Yeah.
No.
So I will say I had like not the most pure intentions going to see it, but I can appreciate what it says, like as a film and as a story, and like what he was trying to convey with that. I'm glad that it's not too long. 94 minutes is a breeze for a movie like this.
Perfect.
It's just
Yeah.
perfect amount of time. But yeah, I mean, oh, it's interesting too. Like, cause like you're of course younger. So like, what is it like? Like you said, like we saw when you were 15,
Hmm.
viewed it much differently. But like as someone who's like kind of closer, age wise, so like, I mean, do you kind
Yep.
of see like, is it something that holds up a bit better today in like the landscape that we're kind of in now with like young kids and kind of what they're obsessed with? And
In my perspective, it did. Like, I'm not drawing on my on anything that I've heard from friends. I honestly don't know many people that have seen it because like it just around here very much like amongst my friends, they know very much how passionate I am about movies. So like
yeah,
this would be one that I wouldn't have known or expected a lot of people to see. That's not to say that I don't know people that may have seen it and I just don't know. I
yeah,
feel like it is underrated around here, but I feel like online and such, like where I would have more of an opportunity to talk to people about this movie. I think it's getting adequate praise all these years later, just not as much as attention maybe as it deserves in terms of like how relevant that it still is all these years later.
Right.
And I still feel like this movie, it's not old by any means. 10
No,
years
no.
is nothing in the grand scheme of things. I still feel like there's a lot of potential for this movie to catch on even down the road. I'm sure I'll know more people in 3, 4, 5 more years that will have come around to have seen this movie. I'm not
Right.
sure if it's still streaming on Netflix. That's where I would have originally first seen it.
It's not. I
But
actually tried to, it is coming. I mean,
oh,
I guess it's kind of cool. It is coming to HBO Max in April. Or no, yeah,
oh, that'll
April.
be huge
It's coming
for
to
it.
HBO in April.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if it was on Netflix at one point or they took it off. When I looked it up, it said that it wasn't streaming on
They must
Netflix
have
in
taken
the
it
in the
off.
US, but it is streaming on Netflix in other countries. But
Oh, okay.
not in the US. But it will be on HBO Max in April, and I actually can see that movie taking off in a really big way via streaming. That would
I
be
think
like,
so.
and honestly, like how I saw it too. I mean, on opening night was like they made that comment about it being like a kind of cult midnight movie. I mean, I saw it on midnight on opening night, and that was the environment. I mean, it definitely was a kind of party like atmosphere. Seeing it in that way.
That would have been a cool experience.
Yeah, and I think that the movie I probably still lives on in that way in certain aspects. Like I could see that being like a huge kind of midnight movie just to kind of show like randomly on like a Friday night. Like it seems like it would work really well for that. Um and I think so. I think the reason why it will continue to thrive is as those girls, particularly Selena Gomez and Vanessa Hudgens, but especially Selena Gomez, are still super famous today. Like Selena
Yes.
Gomez, I think Selena Gomez has the most Instagram followers to date of anyone. Uh, and
Oh
she's
shit.
she's still a like celebrity like magnet and a paparazzi magnet, and
Yeah.
she actually and I think yes, let's see, 405 million followers on Instagram. So the girl is still crazy,
Yeah.
crazy, crazy popular. And I think that
Yes.
appeal from them, all the girls in the movie, that I think that will keep the movie alive for like a lot of people because I mean, like he said, that's why he assembled them that way. I think that kind of keeps the movie relevant, uh, just based on who he cast in like those lead roles. And then gave his wife some work. So cool.
Yeah, that is also cool. So love to see that dynamic. You don't see that a whole lot,
Oh,
but that
yeah.
is pretty neat.
But yeah.
Right on.
Well, that was
So
yeah. What were you gonna say?
yeah, I was going to ask overall. So I mean, I'm sure I can know the answer, but would you recommend this movie to people that haven't seen it, and what would you rate it in whatever form that you choose to rate your movies?
Okay. I know we kind of talked about like before, like, would you recommend this like certain movies to like your friends who are casual movie watchers, or would you only recommend
Right.
this movie to like who are more like leaning more on the cinephile like street where they like
Right.
watch every
I think that's an
movie?
important dynamic to consider when you're recommending movies for
Yeah,
sure.
I would still, even though because it's kind of split for the group, like different people I've met and different friends and all that stuff, where there are people like me that love it, and then there's other people that don't really like it. I still think it's pretty, like I said earlier, accessible to most people. That it's not so far out of the box that it can't be enjoyed by someone who's just thinking like a casual watch. So
I
like
agree.
I would still recommend it. And as far as the score, if you're going out of 10, I'd give it an 8. It's pretty
Nice.
solid. Yeah,
Cool. It's definitely a movie you hold in high regard. That's awesome
yeah,
to see.
yeah.
I agree with you that it is pretty accessible even for like a more like a mainstream film goer. It's definitely a little bit obscure, and there might be I could see like some of my more casual movie watching friends like kind of being like thrown off a little bit about some of like the narrative aspects. But I think there's enough in there to appeal to just the right amount in there that would make it appeal to like a wider audience more so than a
Yeah,
cinephile. But definitely more, if I'm gonna pick one or the other, definitely more of a cinephile's movie.
yeah, I agree. I think it because it does have, even though like he said he was trying to sell the movie into the mainstream, but it does totally have like indie sensibilities like throughout it. Just into how he shoots things. It's not. I mean, it's very artsy in its own way, I guess.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, but I would still recommend it to the casual watchers. And what was the score you're gonna?
I would be more in line, like I bring it like still a positive score, just a little bit lower than you, more in line with like with a critical consensus. I'd think about it. I feel better about it having talked about it too. I'd probably
Yeah.
put it at like a 6.5, but like a
Okay.
good 6.5. And that may
Makes
even
sense.
this will be a movie that I will watch in the future. Whereas like prior to this discussion, I don't know when I would have come back to Spring Breakers.
Yeah, yeah,
Glad I did because it was a good discussion. Glad to have gotten to see it again. And I'm
yeah.
interested to see what 10 more years does for this movie, even five.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested in that too. And it's gonna be so funny when we do like an anniversary episode for like a big movie, like we do like Jurassic Park, and like, do you think that would you recommend this movie to your friends? Like, of course, of course, of course.
That exactly.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, I got friends that like don't watch movies like pre 2000s because it's too old. So
Oh
like that would be
Jesus,
even one that
really?
I would. I swear to God, man, it's like I struggle to get some of my buddies to watch like an 80s movie. They're like, what? That shit? That's too old. That's shitty. Like,
Oh no.
dude, like it's weird, man. So yeah, no,
Uh,
that is a legit concern I would have over recommending Jurassic Park because that is that's old status now by some people. It's
yeah,
dumb, but one of the
that's
best
crazy.
movies ever. But yeah, no, I swear, man, it's a thing with this younger generation. Like, I think a lot of it has to do with like the effects, even though they're top notch. If it's
Yeah,
not like a CGI heavy movie, it looks bad. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But I mean,
Uh,
everyone has their own opinion, and people's thoughts change the more they see. So, but
yeah.
yeah, no, I swear to God, it's a thing. I struggle sometimes to get
Wow,
people
that's
to consider
hilarious.
something even as recent as Jurassic
Like
Park.
that's such like
Yeah.
a that was I thought you were gonna go like you said pre 2000s. I was like, damn, they don't even want to go like beyond 2000. They're like,
Yeah,
nah,
I gotta bite my
1999.
tongue, man,
Like
sometimes.
they're like 98.
Yeah,
Ugh. That's hilarious.
exactly. But no, I
Uh,
gotta bite my tongue sometimes talking about old movies. It's
I
like,
know.
dude, 50s and 60s is old, but still, old has nothing to do with the quality of the movie.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
you know
that's a
what?
whole other discussion.
At least Spring Breakers is still in the sweet spot in 2013. So hopefully they'll be like, that's not
Yes,
too
don't
old.
gotta convince anybody to see that. It's definitely within the realm of
That's not too
watchability,
old. Well,
even for the
yeah,
most casual audience.
this was a really fun discussion. I was interested. I'm glad I didn't get any of your like new thoughts on it after you rewatched it. So like it was kind of
Yeah, this is all
fresh on
brand
here,
new.
and
Yeah,
the
I'm
anniversary
glad for
episodes
that
are
too.
always fun because it's like you get to kind of get into you know we always have to talk news usually, so it's fun to do these episodes where
Yep,
it's just like we're gonna talk about
I
one
really
thing in
like
this movie.
these.
It's very similar to the
Yep,
deep dive in that way. So it's like
yep,
uh, that's the fun part about it. And some people are gonna be like, "Well, I look back on that movie in particular just because it's 10," but I do think that like in its own, it did make an impact on pop culture in a way at the time it came out, and just how it kind of how they sold it and packaged it,
yeah,
and and then I love that A24 was in like the early forefront of like that you were learning then like what kind of like studio they were gonna be and like what movies they were gonna
yeah,
be putting out and like and they've continued to be. I mean, for independent movies, I still think the best out there right now. I mean, Focus Features is fun.
yeah.
I mean, they have some good stuff, but
And
like
Neon
on
as
Neon, but
well.
like but
But
A24,
those
every time
three,
when I see that logo, I'm always like, oh, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be so
yeah,
good.
I
So
love it
yeah,
so much. Yeah, they actually, for anyone listening, they have they're like some pretty good merch on the A24 website, of which I really want to get some stuff. There's a
yeah,
TikToker I listen to, whose name eludes me at the moment, but he's always wearing like a gray A24 ball cap that I really admire. I want to get something like that. They have some sick merch because their logo is honestly like they dress it up so many times in their movies. I love how they integrate it into the opening of their movies, very much
yeah,
like in similar to the theme of whatever's going on in that
yeah,
movie. But yeah, no, A24 is a great studio, and this is a great junior movie for them at the beginning of
yeah.
their well,
Run, I
you know what I
guess.
mean, their run. Yeah, that's a good way of
Yeah.
putting it.
Yeah, and also
Yeah.
interesting too. And that this is not like everyone has their opinion. I see a lot of people on Instagram when they will rank their top 10 A24 movies. I'm not saying that Spring Breakers
Yep.
should be in your top 10, but it's when I bring up Spring Breakers being an A24 release, there are people that genuinely forgot that it was. Like they were like, "Oh yeah, they released that because it was just so early in their like
It's a
run."
sleeper
Yeah,
hit for
yeah, and
sure.
like like they released this, and in the same year, we might talk about this movie when it turns 10 in a couple of months. But the same year they released this, they released the Bling Ring as well, and like promoted it almost in the same way, where it's like showcase. I mean, they knew they had Emma Watson, who like everyone knows from Harry Potter. They used her
Mm.
primarily in the marketing, even though she's not like the main star. They really centered all their marketing around like, hey, you're gonna see her break into celebrities' homes and it's gonna be fun. Like they really leaned in on like that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, it's like I've always loved them as a studio, man. They and yeah, them, but like movies like this, horror films, they like know we're gonna have like a good one with them
That's
when
their
they do
bread and
that.
butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So this was fun, man. As always,
Yes,
you're gonna send us out in that very
for sure.
suave and charismatic way you do so well.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on what you were saying too a few moments ago. I really do enjoy our anniversary episode. So if you guys like this sort of thing, stay tuned because we definitely have a lot scheduled for the remainder of the year. A lot of great movies turning 10, 15, 20, even older than that this year.
Yeah.
2023 is a great year for anniversary. So stay tuned amongst our news related episodes. We will have some more anniversary episodes for you guys to listen to. As always, thank you for tuning in, everyone. If you guys like this sort of content, spread the word. You guys know where to find us at Back to the Blockbuster. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram, anywhere you guys get your podcasts. And Gaius, as always, my friend, pleasure chatting movies with you. Looking forward to next week and everything the week will bring in regards to movies. It's always a pleasure, man.
Always a pleasure, and you're still so fucking good at this. Thank you so much. All right.
Peace,
Peace out.
everybody.
All right.